Hi everybody, this is Barry Schwartz in the Search Engine Roundtable. Today is Friday, June 11th. This is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at SEOroundtable.com over the past week. And this is the Search Buzz video recap. We have a lot to discuss, so let's get started right away. And we're broadcasting live as we do every week. Hopefully we'll have some questions from people live in the chat room. The first thing, the major news this week is that Caffeine, the Google Caffeine Index is now completely live. Matt Cutts announced this at SMX Advanced, I believe Tuesday night. And what that means is basically the Google Caffeine Index is now, whenever you do a search on Google.com or any other search Google property, it's now pulling directly off the Google Caffeine Index. This is not a ranking change. This has nothing to do with rankings. It has nothing to do with pages being higher or lower in the search engines. All this means is that Google's infrastructure for storing and crawling and indexing the web pages out there as web documents or any documents on the web should now be faster, deeper, and fresher as things go on. Again, this has no impact directly on rankings, although the May Day update did have impacts on that. If you want more information about this, we've been covering it time and time again for the past, I think, well over 6 months now. We have a link about it and more information on June 9th at SEOroundtable.com. I'm also going to post that in the chat room for people to check out. And it has a lot of information about what happened and when this first started and all that types of fun stuff. But anyway, people have been suspecting it's been live for a while, but now it's officially live. Google released a preview of this 10 months ago. Actually, 10 months ago today. And that was a preview, and that was pretty much available 10 months ago today, and now it's officially live. So there you have it. The next Webmaster related thing is that if you logged into Google Webmaster Tools and you clicked on the Search Queries report, now obviously that they show the queries, not that they actually show the the charts to show you impressions and click-throughs and stuff like that, people have been noticing there was a major drop-off on, I believe, June 2nd on that report, showing that impressions and clicks have both dropped off. But yet, if you looked at Google Analytics, that did not appear to be the case at all. Google said this was actually a bug. They confirmed it the day after, on June 10th at 6:30 a.m. They confirmed that this is a bug and they're going to work on fixing it. They also post this in the Knowns area section. So again, if you see your traffic or impressions or click-throughs drop in the Search Queries report on June 2nd, do not freak out. This is affecting some Webmaster Tools reports, and it's not a major issue. We have more information about that on June 9th and June 10th. Another feature related to Webmasters is that Google launched earlier this week a new report in crawl errors on the Webmaster Tools. The report is something called Soft 404s. Soft 404s are basically page not found pages, but are not serving up a server status of 404. Instead, they're serving up a 200 server status, which means the page is actually found. This is a problem that a lot of webmasters make when they serve up custom 404 pages. Basically, 404 pages are pages that come up when a person types in a dead URL on a web page. Webmasters customize those pages to make them look pretty and more useful. Often they will serve up a 200 status, meaning the pages exist, but in reality they should be serving up a custom 404 with a 404 server status, which tells the search engines that those pages do not exist. Google is obviously smart enough to realize when a 404 page is actually serving a 200 status code, and now they're showing these errors and calling them 404-like content in the crawl errors. And what this basically means to webmasters and SEOs is that they should probably go through these pages, confirm that they are actually soft 404s, and if they are soft 404s, serve up a real 404. And if they're not, then obviously you want to probably go ahead and tell Google that there's a problem with their tool, and that they actually are real pages. So that's something important that webmasters should check out immediately, in my opinion. And if you do have soft 404s, go through some of them and make sure that they really are being reported accurately by Google Webmaster Tools. Again, this is June 7th at SEOroundtable.com. A Google search feature that was released recently this week is Google Suggest now has spelling corrections dynamically in real time. So the only time this comes up is you do a search in Google, and if Google doesn't have any search suggestions, so if you type in something and it gets very, very specific, and there's no search suggestions coming up in Google, then Google will, and if you misspell something, then Google will say, did you mean XYZ? But it only comes up, a spelling suggestion only comes up when there are no search suggestions showing up for that query, and it's misspelled. So those two criteria. And if you want to learn more about that and see pictures of it, June 7th at SEOroundtable.com. I'm going through this as fast as possible. So there's a lot of stuff to cover. Also this week, Bing announced on Wednesday at SMX at the keynote that they're introducing a new feature called Bing Social Search, which is at bing.com/social. They said they're going to launch it that day, about an hour or so after the keynote. In fact, it didn't go live at least until the next morning, and it's live now. Basically, what this allows you to do is get more information about social things on the web, such as status updates and shared links from Facebook and Twitter, aggregated shared links from non-page pages, so you can actually see on an aggregate basis who's sharing your links across the web. You can see the new homepage has trends from Twitter and Facebook data. And finally, there's better ways to filter and store tweets and Facebook updates over there. And, I'm going to click over and see if I can see any examples for you guys. But you can see it shows the top shared links, which is obviously FIFA today, which is the World Cup. And you can see different information about that and what's going on over there. Again, I know more people are joining the chat room and joining the live video. If you have questions, please go ahead and join the chat room or tweet me questions at Rusty Brick, and I'll hopefully incorporate them in the videos as we go. The next topic is Bing Cashback. Since we're on the topic of Bing, a popular feature that Bing had back in the day was a cashback feature. It's actually live now. If you go to Google Bing Shopping, you can filter the results by cashback rewards. And what cashback does is basically give you an incentive to use Bing Shopping and to get money back on your purchases using Bing Cashback. People could get cashback from 2 to 50% on some deals. It was very, very popular in the early days, where a lot of shoppers went to Bing just to search for cashback rewards in order to get 25% back directly in their PayPal account. Microsoft has announced they're dropping that. It's no longer going to be live after July 30th at 9 p.m. Pacific time. The reason they are removing it is because it didn't work out like they hoped for. It wasn't keeping searchers on the radar. It wasn't getting more searchers to use them. It was just getting people, to go to their search engine, search for deals, and then leave and buy it and then never come back. So, not been working as they planned, but we have more information about this at SEOroundtable.com on June 7th. Move over to the Adwords topic. The major news for Adwords this week was that they released a new beta tool called Adwords Campaign Experimental Tool. And what this tool basically allows you to do is, if you are an advertiser and you want to see how changing your bids will affect everything else around that, Google is giving you a new tool called ACE, or AdWords Campaign Experiments, AdWords Campaign Experiments, that basically allows you to better test changing bids and changing things on your campaigns using a tool that tracks all those campaign testings. The different things you can test include incremental impact of adding new keywords to your campaigns, changing keywords, or adding group level bids. The value of restructuring your content campaigns to use more tightly themed ad groups. The change in volume by using different keyword matches, and the value of using an ad group default bids versus a keyword level bid system. There's lots of different things you can test with this, and this basically tool helps advertisers test things. So that's pretty neat. Maybe next week we'll discuss some other AdWords features, but we're going to move on to the next topic. This is pretty interesting. Google Maps is testing what is called tags, and tags is basically a way to highlight your business listing in Google Maps or Google Web Search for your Google Local Business Listing or Google Places Business Listing for an extra $25 per month. What it basically does is it bumps up your listing in the web results or in the Maps results and says, highlights in red and yellow, with a little tag next to it, and shows you your coupons, your Google coupons. So here's some examples of how it looks in Google Maps on your desktop, and also on Google Maps on your iPhone. Basically, again, it just highlights your coupon listings for $25 extra per business per month. Yahoo Publisher Network, the Google AdSense competitor, is finally done with. They sent their publishers their final check this past week. I got mine also over the weekend. I think maybe on Friday afternoon last week, and it's done. Basically, we have a post on June 7th at SEOroundtable.com that this is the final payment that Yahoo is paying out to their publishers. It's sad to see that go. Google News dropped. It's been testing a lot of features we discussed last week. They tested a new UI for sharing and stuff like that. We discussed that last week. But they're also testing, or they actually removed from the Google News homepage the search the web button. And a lot of people are upset about that. Now they just have search news instead of search news or search the web. They have search news, and a lot of people are saying, hey, Google News is my homepage. I like to use that to also search the web. Could you please bring back the search the web button, because otherwise I have to click on the Google homepage, go there, and then search the web that way. So now again, Google only has a search the news button, not search the web, and people are fairly upset with that. Here's an interesting SEO related topic related to Twitter changes. So Twitter recently announced that in the future they're going to, no matter what, pass through all links, I believe even shortened URL links like bit.ly URLs, through their own URL shortener, which is t.co/whatever. The good news is that Twitter 301 redirects those links. Obviously, all those links in Twitter are no-followed, but people copy those links, they paste them into their own thing, and those links may not be no-followed. The question is, if you're copying the link and it goes to a t.co, which is the Twitter URL, and then it's going to a bit.ly URL, and then that's going to your final destination page, it's going through two different 301 redirects in order to get to the final destination URL. Now, we all know that Google and Yahoo and all the search engines take a longer time to pick up chain redirects. Chain redirects, again, are going through not one redirect, but multiple, which is in the case of the Twitter URL, it might do that because a lot of people post bit.ly URLs, and those bit.ly URLs are going to go through a Twitter shortener URL and then finally go to your destination URL. So if that's the case, then you're having these chain URLs, and obviously Google says they don't necessarily like them. They prefer you just redirect directly or link directly. So that's something to keep into consideration when Twitter launches this feature. We have more information about it on June 10th at SEOroundtable.com, and you definitely want to be looking at this on the radar. Again, Twitter no-follows everything, but a lot of people copy the URLs or copy tweets into their own pages, which then are not no-followed, and they're followed, and that's where this makes a big impact. All right, big news this week. Very big news. Yesterday morning, around midnight, yesterday, right before I got on a flight back from SMX, Google automatically changed the homepage background image of Google.com to a random image from a pre-select group of images that they would be using, forcing people to have a very customized and very bold Google homepage. Instead of the white background with the Google logo, they had this very, very big background image on their homepage. This is basically a way for Google to tell people, hey, you can now change the background image on your homepage. It blew up. It totally blew up on them. They removed it early. They removed it about 12 hours in. They said it wasn't. They said it was a mistake in terms of them not communicating this properly to their searchers and to their users. A lot of people were calling Google a Bing copycat by going ahead and doing this automatically. You can see in the Google web search forums when I checked in the morning, every single post, almost every single post, like 99% of the posts, 10 pages deep in that forum, were all complaints about Google automatically changing their homepage. So it totally blew up on them, completely blew up on them. And then later on in that day, Marissa Meyer from Google, who is their head of, their VP, head of user interface and all that fun jazz over at Google, tweeted that they put it back to the way it was, and they apologized. Basically, they did not implement it they wanted to, and they apologized, and they took it off. It blew up majorly, and Google admitted to it, and it was a major backlash for Google. So if you missed that, just go to our post on June 10th at SEOroundtable.com. Like I said, this past week was SMX Advanced. I wasn't planning on covering the conference, but Lisa Barone over at Spoken Media hurt herself. She couldn't make it, so the only live blog coverage in real time, consistent, was from myself and from Bruce Clay blog. So I figured we'd go ahead and do it. We posted, I think, about 8-9 sessions or so. It was last minute. It was really good information coming out of the conference, so if you missed it, you definitely want to go ahead and check the recap. We have the recap posted on June 9th at SEOroundtable.com. You definitely want to take a look at all those sessions that I covered, which are mostly SEO related, on June 9th at SEOroundtable.com. And if you have time over the weekend, definitely check that out. It was really a great conference. 2 more topics to go. This past, I believe, was it? This past Monday was, actually Sunday was D-Day. It was basically Normandy, the day the Allied troops stormed Normandy in Germany, and then a pretty devastating day for a lot of people, but also a significant day in history. And a lot of people were upset that Google did not have the 66th anniversary doodle for D-Day. Obviously, you guys all know that Google does not show logos for days of destruction, days of very... they only show Google Doodles for days that are actually happy or lighthearted events. But people were still upset. Last year it was even more impactful because Google put a Tetris logo up on D-Day, and people were really upset about that. So this year they just didn't do anything, and people were still upset. The thing was, Google allowed you to customize your homepage, so you could have put your own logo up if you wanted to anyway. Anyway, I'm surprised people want the D-Day logo, but people do. Finally, today, Google has 2 doodles up, depending on where you're coming from. If you're in the US, Google has a doodle for Jacques Cousteau. Basically, this guy helped invent the scuba diving air lung, where you can actually breathe through air tanks while going underwater. He died June 25, 1997, but he was born 100 years ago today. So Google has that in the US, but throughout the world, Google has a special soccer logo up. Google has a special soccer logo up for FIFA. Today's the FIFA conference, FIFA tournament, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom into my screen. Here's the Jacques logo, or Jacques. I can't pronouncing this right at all, but anyway, here's that Google Doodle. Over here is the FIFA logo that's found on most properties outside of the U.S. But South Africa and some others have a special Google FIFA logo. This was made by some child who won a doodle competition. And Google France also, a doodle competition, is another logo for that as well. Yahoo has an animated logo. Baidu has their own logo. Yeah, YouTube has a special logo. Bing has a special logo for the FIFA thing. Ask.com as well. And then all the search engines have their own special smart answers for World Cup types of searches, like Google, as you see over here. Again, today is the FIFA tournament, and that pretty much recaps the Search Buzz video recap. My name again is Barry Schwartz. Thanks for listening and watching live, and for watching the recap on the podcast. Today again is June 11th, Friday, and hopefully guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, and everyone have a great weekend. Thanks again.